Okay, so picture this. I'm in labor. Not the, oh, I think I might be having contractions kind of labor. This was the full blown, holy mother of all that is holy, get this baby out of me now kind of labor. The pain would, well, let's just say it was intense. Like 1,000 tiny ninjas were doing a synchronized karate routine on my insides. But through the haze of pain, there was also this anticipation, a weird mix of excitement and terror, knowing that my life was about to change forever. I was about to become a mother. Ethan and I, we were about to become parents. Ethan, my husband, the man I loved, the man I'd built a life with, the man who, well, the man who was supposed to be by my side, holding my hand, whispering sweet nothings in my ear, and generally being the supportive partner I deserved. But as I gripped the hospital bed, my knuckles white, my breath coming in ragged gasps, I couldn't help but notice he wasn't exactly living up to expectations. He was there, physically present, but his mind seemed to be elsewhere. He was scrolling through his phone, his brow furrowed, his fingers tapping away, occasionally glancing up with a distracted, "You okay, babe?" "I'm in labor, Ethan," I'd grit out through clenched teeth. "What do you think?" "Right, right," he'd mumble, his eyes glued to the screen. "Just one sec. This is important." Important? More important than his wife in labor about to bring their child into the world? I pushed the thought away, rationalizing his behavior. He was probably just stressed, worried about the baby, trying to distract himself from from the whole, my wife is in excruciating pain thing. But as the hours dragged on, as the contractions intensified, as my body screamed for relief, his detachment became harder and harder to ignore. He'd pace the room, his phone glued to his ear, whispering in hushed tones, his face a mask of concern. But not for me. I remembered the early days, the whirlwind romance, the passionate promises, the unshakable belief that we were meant to be. Ethan had been everything I'd ever wanted. Charming, ambitious, and, well, let's be honest, ridiculously good-looking. He'd swept me off my feet, promising me the world, a future filled with love, laughter, and, well, babies. And for a while, it had been perfect. We were the it couple, the envy of our friends, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out. But somewhere along the way, things had shifted. His career had taken off, his ambition had grown, and well, I'd become the supportive wife, the one who stood by him, the one who put his needs first, well, the one who was always there, waiting in the wings. I'd rationalized it, of course. He was working hard, building a future for us, for our family, and I was happy to support him, to be his rock, his cheerleader. But as I lay there, my body racked with pain, my heart aching with a different kind of hurt, I realized maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe his ambition had outgrown our love. Maybe his priorities had shifted. Maybe I wasn't his priority anymore. And as the final contraction hit, as I pushed with all my might, as the baby's cries filled the room, I knew something had to change. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned, the love I'd craved, the partnership I'd believed in. This was something else. Something broken. Okay, so the phone call. It wasn't your typical wrong number or telemarketer trying to sell you extended car warranty kind of call. No, this was the kind of call that could shatter your world, the kind that could make you question everything you thought you knew, the kind that could, well, the kind that could make you want to throw your husband's phone out the window. It came just as the baby's cries subsided, just as the nurses were cleaning up let's just say the aftermath of childbirth, just as I was sinking into that blissful exhaustion that comes after pushing a human being out of your body. Ethan's phone rang. Not a work call, not a family emergency, but a name. Olivia. His ex, the one he swore he'd never spoken to again, the one he'd supposedly moved on from, the one who was apparently still very much in his life. He answered, his voice hushed, his face pale. "Olivia, what's wrong?" I watched him, my heart sinking, my gut clenching. The way he said her name, the concern in his voice, the the way his eyes lit up, even though she was obviously upset, it was like a punch to the gut, a slap in the face, a, a betrayal I hadn't even realized was happening. He listened, his brow furrowed, his expression shifting from concern to something else. Sympathy? Longing? It was hard to tell. She's what? He said, his voice barely a whisper. She broke up with. Oh God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. He paced the room, his phone pressed to his ear, his words a jumble of apologies, reassurances, and, well, let's just say they weren't exactly the words I wanted to hear from my husband, moments after giving birth to our child. I know, he said, his voice soothing. It's okay. I'm here for you. Always. Always? Always? What about me? What about our baby? What about us? He hung up, his face pale, his eyes filled with a kind of desperation I'd never seen before. He turned to me, his expression apologetic, his voice hesitant. Sophia, I have to go. Go? I echoed, my voice barely a whisper, my mind still reeling from the phone call, the name, the betrayal. It's Olivia, he said, his voice urgent. She needs me. She's not doing well. She needs you? I repeated, my voice rising, the anger finally breaking through the shock. What about me? What about our baby? Don't I need you? I know, he said, his voice pleading. But this is an emergency. I'll be back as soon as I can, I promise. And with that, he was gone, leaving me there in the hospital bed with our newborn baby. My heart shattered. My world, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly spinning on its axis anymore. I lay there numb. The pain of childbirth replaced by a deeper, more profound ache. The shock, the disbelief, the heartbreak. It was like a tidal wave, washing over me, drowning me in a sea of, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly tears of joy. He'd chosen her, his ex, over me, over our baby, over us. And in that moment, as the reality of his betrayal sank in, I knew I wasn't just a mother now, I was a survivor. Okay, so labor. Alone. Not exactly the Kodak moment I'd envisioned, you know? The nurses were amazing. Don't get me wrong. They were all, you go, girl, and breathe, mama, breathe. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't him. The pain was, well, it was epic, like a herd of elephants doing the tango on my spine. I squeezed the hand of the poor nurse next to me so hard, I'm pretty sure I cut off her circulation. But she just smiled and kept saying, "You're doing great, Mama. Almost there." But almost there felt like a million miles away. Each contraction was a tidal wave, crashing over me, threatening to drown me in pain. I pushed, I screamed, well, let's just say I wasn't exactly winning any Miss Congeniality awards. And through it all, there was this emptiness. A void where Ethan should have been, where his hand should have been holding mine, where his voice should have been whispering encouragement. But he wasn't there. He was with her, Olivia, the ex, the one who apparently needed him more than his own wife in labor. The realization hit me like a rogue contraction, a sharp, agonizing twist that went beyond the physical pain. I wasn't his priority. Not anymore. Maybe I never had been. I remembered all the times I'd put his needs first. His career, his ambitions, his everything. I'd been the supportive wife, the one who always understood, the one who never complained, the one who was always there, waiting in the wings. And what had I gotten in return? A distracted husband, a neglected marriage, and, well, a solo performance in the delivery room. The anger started to build, a slow burn that fueled my pushes, my screams, my determination to get this baby out, to prove to myself, to him, to the world, that I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone. I was strong. I was capable. I was about to be a mother, damn it. And I was going to do this, with or without him. The final push was, well, it was something else. A primal scream, a release of all the pain, the fear, the betrayal, and then a miracle. A tiny cry, a slippery bundle of joy, a, a new life. They placed her on my chest, my daughter, my miracle, my everything. And in that moment, as I looked into her eyes, as I felt her tiny hand grasp my finger, as I fell in love, I knew I was going to be okay. Ethan might have chosen Olivia, but I had her, and she was all that mattered. She was my priority, my reason for being, my second chance. He might have missed the birth of his daughter, but I was there. I was the one who brought her into the world, the one who held her first, the one who, well, the one who loved her most. And as I lay there, exhausted but exhilarated, my heart filled with a love I'd never known before, I realized I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone. I had her. And that was enough. Okay, so complications. Turns out, childbirth isn't always a walk in the park. Who knew? One minute I was basking in the afterglow of new motherhood. The next minute, well, let's just say things took a turn. It started with the pain, not the normal, ow, my stitches hurt, kind of pain. This was a whole new level of agony, a searing, burning sensation that spread through my body like wildfire. Then came the dizziness. The room started spinning, the lights blurred, and I felt like I was about to, well, let's just say I wasn't exactly feeling steady on my feet. The nurses rushed in, their faces etched with concern, their voices urgent. "What's wrong, Mama?" they asked, their hands checking my pulse, my blood pressure, well, everything they could get their hands on. I don't know, I mumbled, my voice weak, my vision fading. It hurts. They called the doctor, they ran tests, they did all the things doctors do when they're trying to figure out why your body is suddenly staging a revolt. And through it all, there was this fear. A cold, creeping fear that something was terribly wrong, that I wasn't going to be okay. I thought about my daughter, my precious baby girl, the one I'd just brought into the world, the one I'd vowed to protect, to love, to be there for. And I felt this overwhelming regret that I might not get to see her grow up, to watch her take her first steps, to hear her say her first words. Regret that I might not get to be the mother I'd always dreamed of being, the one who'd always be there, the one who'd never let her down. And then I heard it, a voice, faint but familiar, calling out from the hallway, "Ethan, is Ethan Langford here? His wife, she's..." The voice trailed off, lost in the cacophony of beeping machines, hurried footsteps, and, well, my own fading consciousness. Ethan. He wasn't there. He was with her, Olivia, the ex, the one who apparently needed him more than his own wife, his own daughter. And as my vision darkened, as the pain consumed me, as the world slipped away, I thought, he never came. Sir? He never came. Not for the birth of his daughter, not for me. And in that moment, as I surrendered to the darkness, as I let go, I knew I was done. Done with him. Done with the pain. Done with the betrayal. This wasn't the end, though. It was a beginning, a second chance, a chance to do it all over again, to make different choices, to finally choose myself. Okay, so picture this. 1 minute you're fading out thinking, "Welp, this is it." The next minute, you're waking up, but not in a hospital bed, not in a cozy recovery room, not even in, not anywhere that makes sense. I woke up in my own bed, our bed, the one Ethan and I shared, or, used to share. The room was familiar, the pale yellow walls, the framed photos of Ethan and me back when we were all smiles and sunshine. The pregnancy test on the nightstand, the positive pregnancy test. My first thought, did I dream the whole thing? The labor, the delivery, the the complications. It all felt so real, so visceral, so traumatic. But here I was, back in my own bed, the sun streaming through the window, birds chirping outside, like nothing had happened. I sat up, my heart pounding, my head spinning. I touched my stomach, expecting to feel something. A bump, a scar, something. But it was flat, empty, like like it had all been a dream. But then the memories flooded back. The pain, the fear, the the betrayal. Ethan's phone call, Olivia's name, his his absence, the loneliness, the pushing, the complications, the feeling of fading away. It wasn't a dream, it was real. It had happened. And then it hadn't. I stumbled out of bed, my legs shaky, my mind reeling. I picked up the pregnancy test, my hand trembling, positive, just like before. 9 months before, 9 months before, everything. A wave of dizziness washed over me, a strange mix of disbelief and something else. Hope? Maybe, but mostly anger. A white-hot rage that burned through me, fueled by the memories of what was to come, the pain, the betrayal, the loss. I looked around the room, at the photos of Ethan and me, the symbols of our supposed love, our supposed future, and I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty void where my heart used to be. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve me. He didn't deserve this second chance. But I did. I deserved a chance to rewrite my story, to make different choices, to finally choose myself. The anger was still there, a burning ember in my gut, but it was starting to be tempered by something else. Determination, a fierce, unwavering resolve to not repeat the past, to not let him steal my happiness, to not let him win. This wasn't just a second chance. It was an opportunity, a chance to build a better life, a stronger life, a life without him. I walked to the bathroom, my reflection staring back at me from the mirror. I looked the same, but I felt different. Harder, wiser, stronger. I wasn't the naive, trusting woman who'd fallen for his charm, his promises, his lies. I was someone else now. Someone who knew what was coming. Someone who was prepared. Someone who was... Well, let's just say I wasn't going to be the same doormat I'd been before. This time, things were going to be different. This time, I was in control. This time, I was going to make him regret everything. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation, out of a need to protect myself, my daughter, my future. This was my second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. Okay, so Secret Agent Sophia, not literally, of course, but it kind of felt that way. I was living a double life, playing the role of the devoted wife while secretly plotting my escape. It was like something out of a spy movie, except instead of secret codes and hidden weapons, I had bank statements and legal documents. My first mission? Financial independence. Ethan handled all our finances. You know, the I'm the man, I'll take care of everything kind of guy, which in retrospect was a huge mistake. But this time, I wasn't going to be caught off guard. I was going to be prepared. I started small, siphoning off a little money here and there, transferring it to a new account he didn't know about. I used my own fun money, the allowance he gave me for shopping and pampering, which, let's be honest, was mostly spent on groceries and household supplies. I sold some of my old jewelry, the pieces he'd given me in the early days, the ones that now felt more like shackles than tokens of affection. And I even picked up a few freelance gigs, using my old writing skills to earn some extra cash on the side. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A secret stash, a safety net, a way out. Next up, legal counsel. I wasn't going to let him walk all over me in court. Not this time. I needed someone who could fight for me, for my daughter, for our future. So I started researching divorce lawyers, the best of the best, the ones who could make even the most ruthless opponent tremble in their boots. I met with them secretly during my lunch breaks, under the guise of doctor's appointments and shopping trips. I gathered information, built a case, and, well, let's just say I was ready for war. And then there was the documentation. Ethan's neglect, his emotional distance, his Olivia obsession. I started keeping a journal, not just of my own thoughts and feelings, but of his actions, his words, his absences. Every missed dinner, every forgotten anniversary, every "I'm too busy, babe" text, it all went into the journal. I even started recording our conversations, secretly, of course, capturing his dismissive comments, his empty promises, his blatant disregard for my feelings. It was kind of creepy, I'll admit, but it was also necessary. I needed proof, evidence, ammunition. I needed to protect myself, my daughter, my my future. Ethan, meanwhile, was oblivious to my secret second life. He was too busy with his work, his friends, his Olivia. He'd come home late, his phone glued to his ear, his mind a million miles away. He'd give me a perfunctory kiss, a distracted, "How was your day?" and then disappear into his study, his world of spreadsheets and conference calls. I played along, of course. I smiled, I nodded, I I pretended everything was fine, but inside I was plotting, planning, preparing. I was building a new life, a stronger life, a life without him. It was a strange existence, this double life. One part devoted wife, one part secret agent, but it was also empowering. I was taking control, reclaiming my power, building a future where I wasn't just an afterthought, a footnote in a story. I was the main character, the heroine, the one who was going to win. And as I tucked my secret journal under my pillow, as I transferred another $100 to my hidden account, as I smiled sweetly at Ethan while he rambled on about his latest work project, I knew I was ready. Bring it on, world. Bring it on, Ethan. I was Sophia, and I was unstoppable. Okay, so enter Dr. Alexander Reed. He wasn't your typical cold, clinical, in and out in 5 minutes kind of doctor. He was different, warm, attentive, and with a smile that could melt a glacier. He actually listened. Like, really listened. When I talked about my pregnancy anxieties, my weird cravings, pickles and ice cream, anyone? And my general, "I'm about to become a mother and my husband is MIA" freakouts. He'd nod, his brow furrowed with concern, his eyes filled with genuine empathy. "It's normal to feel anxious, Sophia," he'd say, his voice calm and reassuring. "Pregnancy is a big change, both physically and emotionally. But you're doing great. You and the baby are healthy, and that's all that matters." He'd answer my questions, no matter how silly or trivial, with patience and a touch of humor. He'd explain the medical jargon in plain English, making me feel like I was actually part of the process, not just a vessel for his medical expertise. And he'd always ask about Ethan, not in a judgmental, "Where's your husband?" kind of way, but in a genuine, "How's your support system?" kind of way. I'd mumble something about him being busy with work, and he'd nod, his eyes understanding, his silence comforting. It was a stark contrast to Ethan's. Well, let's just say Ethan wasn't exactly winning any Husband of the Year awards. He'd show up for the occasional appointment, his phone glued to his ear, his mind a million miles away. He'd glance at the ultrasound screen, mumble a distracted, "Looks good," and then go back to his important phone calls, his urgent emails, his everything that apparently mattered more than his wife and his unborn child. Dr. Reed, on the other hand, was present. He was there, fully there, in the moment, with me, with the baby, with the miracle of life that was unfolding inside me. He made me feel seen, heard, and, cared for. It was a strange feeling, this sense of connection with someone who is essentially a stranger. But it was also comforting, like a warm blanket on a cold day, a safe harbor in a storm, a reminder that there were still good people in the world, people who cared, people who, well, people who weren't Ethan. And as I lay there, on the examination table, Dr. Reed's gentle hands checking the baby's heartbeat, his kind eyes meeting mine, I couldn't help but think, maybe this was what it was supposed to feel like. Maybe this was what real support, real care, real, well, maybe this was what real love was supposed to feel like. It was a revelation, a turning point, a shift in my perspective. I wasn't just a patient, a pregnant woman, a, a wife. I was Sophia, and I deserved to be seen, heard, and, well, loved. And as I walked out of the doctor's office, my hand resting on my growing belly, a smile playing on my lips, I knew things were changing. I was changing. And this time, I wasn't going to settle for anything less than everything. Okay, so the shift. It wasn't a sudden dramatic change, like a lightning bolt hitting me out of the blue. It was more like a gradual thawing, a slow melting of the ice that had formed around my heart. It started with the small things. Dr. Reed remembering my favorite tea, Earl Grey, no sugar, asking about my writing projects, noticing the new haircut I'd gotten, a subtle screw you to Ethan, who hadn't even noticed I'd chopped off 6 inches. Then there were the not-so-small things. The way he'd hold my hand during the ultrasounds, his touch warm and reassuring, not just clinical. The way he'd listen to my fears, my anxieties, my general, I'm about to become a single mother and my ex-husband is a jerk, ramblings, without judgment, without interruption, without checking his phone every 5 seconds. And then there were the moments, the stolen glances, the shared laughter, the way his eyes would linger on mine a little too long, a flicker of something more than just doctor-patient concern. It wasn't a romance, not yet. It was a connection, a shared understanding, a mutual respect, a feeling that I was seen, heard, and, valued. It was a stark contrast to my relationship with Ethan, which had become, let's just say it wasn't exactly a Hallmark movie. He was distant, preoccupied, and, let's be honest, kind of a jerk. He'd come home late, his phone glued to his ear, his mind a million miles away. He'd grunt a hello, barely acknowledge my existence, and then disappear into his study, his world of work, and, Olivia. Dr. Reed, on the other hand, was, present. He was there, fully there, in the moment, with me, with the baby, with the life we were creating together. He made me feel like I mattered, like my thoughts, my feelings, like my existence had value. It was a revelation, a wake-up call, a slap in the face with a bouquet of roses. I'd settled for so little, for so long, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be cherished, to be seen, not just as a wife, a mother, a supporting character in someone else's story, but as Sophia, a woman with her own dreams, her own desires, her own life. And as I sat in his office, his warm hand on mine, his kind eyes meeting mine, I realized this was what it was supposed to feel like. This was what real love, real support, this was what real partnership was supposed to feel like. It wasn't about passion or fireworks or any of the things I thought love was supposed to be. It was about kindness, respect, and, let's be honest, a little bit of that he actually listens when I talk magic. And as I walked out of his office that day, my hand resting on my growing belly, a smile playing on my lips, I knew I was falling. Not for him, not yet, but for the possibility of something more, something real, something that wasn't Ethan. Okay, so Operation Bye Bye Ethan was in full swing. It wasn't a dramatic, I'm leaving you, kind of thing. It was more like a slow, calculated, I'm building my escape route while you're busy being oblivious, kind of thing. Think Mission Impossible meets Desperate Housewives, with a dash of Legally Blonde thrown in for good measure. My first priority, evidence. I needed proof, solid proof, that Ethan was, let's just say not exactly husband material, not just for the divorce, but for the custody battle. I wasn't going to let him waltz in and claim he was father of the year when he'd barely acknowledged my existence, let alone our unborn child. I continued my journal, meticulously documenting every missed appointment, every late night, every "I'm too busy, babe" text. I even started taking photos, discreetly, of him scrolling through his phone while I was trying to talk to him, of his empty side of the bed when I woke up in the middle of the night, well, of all the little things that added up to a big, fat, "I'm neglecting my wife and unborn child" case. I also kept recording our conversations, secretly, of course. It felt a little sneaky, a little wrong, but it was necessary. I needed to capture his dismissive comments, his empty promises, his general lack of interest in anything that wasn't Olivia or his work. It was like building a case, brick by brick, piece by piece, preparing for the day when I'd finally unleash my legal arsenal. Speaking of legal, I finalized my divorce strategy with my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah, who looked like she could win a case against a honey badger. We discussed custody arrangements, financial settlements, and, well, let's just say I wasn't going to be left penniless and heartbroken. I was going to fight for what I deserved, for what my daughter deserved, for a fresh start. And then there was the emotional detachment. This was the hardest part. I had to distance myself from Ethan, emotionally, mentally, and, well, physically. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I'd look at him, at the man I'd once loved, the man I'd built a life with, and I'd feel a pang of something. Sadness, regret, maybe even a flicker of hope. But then I'd remember the phone call, Olivia's name, his absence. I'd remember the pain, the loneliness, the betrayal, and the anger would resurface, a burning ember that fueled my resolve, my determination, my escape plan. I started spending more time with friends, reconnecting with people I'd lost touch with during my devoted wife phase. I focused on my work, my writing, my own interests. I started taking prenatal yoga classes, not just for the exercise, but for the community, the support, the connection with other women who were going through the same thing I was. I even started dating, casually, of course. It wasn't about finding a new love, not yet. It was about reminding myself that I was still desirable, still attractive, still me, not just Ethan's wife, not just a mother, but Sophia, a woman with her own life, her own dreams, her own future. Ethan, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of my secret preparations. He was too busy with his work, his friends, his Olivia. He'd come home late, grumble a hello, and then disappear into his study, his world of spreadsheets and conference calls. He thought everything was fine. He thought I was still the same devoted wife, the same supportive partner, the same doormat. He was wrong, so wrong. And as I packed my bags carefully and methodically, as I finalized my legal documents, as I mentally said goodbye to the life we'd built together, I knew. I was ready. The stage was set, the plan was in motion, and the curtain was about to rise on a new act. One where I was the star, the heroine, the one who was finally in control. Okay, so the night. It was eerily similar to the first time. The same sense of anticipation, the same dread. The contractions were coming fast and furious. My body was screaming for relief. And Ethan was nowhere to be seen. He'd been working late and, of course, a last-minute meeting, a crucial presentation, a convenient excuse to avoid being present, to avoid, me. And then the phone rang. Olivia. Her name, a dagger to my heart, a reminder of his priorities. His betrayal. He answered, his voice hushed. His face. Well, let's just say it wasn't the face of a man about to become a father for the second time. It was the face of a man who was needed elsewhere. Olivia, what's wrong? He murmured, his voice laced with concern, with something else, something that made my stomach churn, my blood run cold. He listened, his brow furrowed, his expression shifting from concern to panic. Oh God, okay, I'm on my way. He hung up, his face pale, His eyes, well, they didn't even meet mine. He grabbed his keys, his jacket, his escape route. I I have to go, he stammered, his voice rushed, his movements frantic. It's Olivia. She needs me. Again? I managed to choke out, the pain in my heart eclipsing the physical pain of the contractions. She needs you again? Now? It's an emergency, he said, his voice clipped, his eyes darting towards the door. I'll be back, I promise. Promises, empty promises, just like before. And with that, he was gone, just like before, leaving me there, in the hospital bed, with the contractions coming harder and faster, the inevitable approaching. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even feel surprised. It was like a replay of a bad movie, a predictable ending to a tragic story. Hours later, after the nurses had helped me through the delivery, again their kindness a stark contrast to his absence, after I'd held my beautiful baby girl in my arms, again a moment he'd missed. After I'd done it all, alone. Just like before, he finally returned. He walked into the room, his face etched with, what, guilt, regret, or maybe just exhaustion. Sophia, he said, his voice hesitant, his eyes searching for, what, forgiveness? Approval? He didn't find it. He looked around the room, expecting to see me, our newborn baby, the happy family he'd abandoned twice. But the room was empty. The crib was empty. My side of the bed was empty. He called my name, his voice growing frantic. Sophia, where are you? But there was no answer. Only the silence of a room that had once been filled with love, laughter, and hope. Now it was just empty. He checked the bathroom, the closet, the nursery. But we were gone. Vanished, like we'd never been there. He sank onto the bed, his face pale, his eyes wide with realization. He'd made his choice. Again. And this time, there were consequences. Okay, so Ethan's reaction. Let's just say it wasn't pretty. Imagine a toddler throwing a tantrum because someone stole his favorite toy. Yeah, it was kind of like that, only with more yelling, more accusations, and more lawyers. He called me, of course, his voice a mixture of panic, anger, and a weird kind of desperation I'd never heard before. Sophia, where are you? What the hell is going on? You can't just disappear. I can, I said calmly, my voice surprisingly steady. And I did. But the baby, our daughter, she's fine, I said. She's with me. She's safe. You can't just take her. I'm her father. You had your chance, I said, my voice hardening. You made your choice. Twice. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. He knew I was right. He knew he'd messed up, royally. And now, he was facing the consequences. The divorce proceedings were, let's just say they weren't exactly a walk in the park. Ethan fought dirty, throwing accusations, spreading rumors, and generally trying to make my life a living hell. But I was prepared. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and, let's just say I wasn't the same naive, trusting woman he'd married. I fought back, with facts, with logic, and with a newfound sense of self-worth. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me, manipulate me, or, Ethan me. I was Sophia, and I was done being his doormat. The custody battle was the hardest part. He wanted shared custody, claiming he was a good father, a loving parent, let's just say he was full of it, but I had my journal, my recordings, my proof that he'd been nothing but a neglectful, absentee father. The judge, a wise, no-nonsense woman who looked like she could smell a lie from a mile away, sided with me. Full custody, no visitation. Ethan was, let's just say he wasn't exactly happy about it. He raged, he pleaded, he even cried, but it was too late. He'd made his bed, and now he had to lie in it, alone. And me? I walked out of the courtroom, my daughter in my arms, my head held high, my heart, It wasn't exactly filled with joy, but it was filled with peace. A quiet, steady peace that came from knowing I'd done the right thing, that I'd protected my daughter, that I'd finally chosen myself. The divorce was messy, painful, and, well, expensive, but it was also liberating. I was free. Free from Ethan, free from his lies, well, free from the life I'd thought I wanted, the life that had almost destroyed me. And as I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, innocent baby girl, I knew I was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. We had each other. And that was all that mattered. Okay, so the aftermath. It wasn't pretty, not at first. Ethan, stripped of his perfect family facade and facing the consequences of his choices, was a mess. He showed up at my doorstep looking like a stray dog that had been left out in the rain, his eyes red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. "Sophia," he pleaded. "I'm so sorry. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. Please give me another chance. I'll be a better husband, a better father. Just, please." He brought flowers, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. He brought gifts, extravagant things I'd never even hinted at wanting. He even brought a puppy, a fluffy, adorable golden retriever puppy with big, sad eyes that mirrored his own. It was almost pathetic, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I'd seen his true colors, his priorities, his capacity for self-deception. I'd learned my lesson, the hard way. "Ethan," I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering, "it's over. We're over. You made your choice. Now live with it." He tried everything. He called, he texted, he even serenaded me, badly I might add. He begged, he pleaded, he even threatened to sue for more custody, which, let's be honest, was a laughable threat. But I held my ground. I had my daughter, my career, my life. I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone. And slowly, gradually, the storm subsided. Ethan, faced with my unwavering resolve, finally retreated. He moved on, found someone new, someone who apparently didn't mind playing second fiddle to Olivia and his work. And me? I thrived. I focused on my daughter, my writing, my own happiness. I built a life that was truly mine, a life filled with love, laughter, and, well, a whole lot less drama. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and even started dating. Casually, of course. I wasn't looking for a replacement for Ethan, not exactly. I was looking for someone who saw me, who valued me, who, well, who didn't leave me alone in labor to comfort his ex. And you know what? I found him. Not a Prince Charming, not a knight in shining armor, but a good man, a kind man. A man who loved me, who loved my daughter, who was actually present in our lives. Life wasn't perfect, of course. There were still challenges, still struggles, still life. But it was my life, and I was living it, on my own terms, without apologies, without regrets, without Ethan. And as I watched my daughter take her first steps, her tiny hand reaching for mine, her face lit up with a smile that could melt a glacier, I knew. I'd made the right choice. I'd chosen myself, and in doing so, I'd chosen her. I'd chosen happiness.